in that moment, that fear can be dismantled, understanding that, well, we're not in the past and we're not in the future. I'm just here with my daughter. And let me return to presence with what is. She's feeling sad today, or she's having a difficult moment today. It's okay. Your worry doesn't change outcomes, your presence does.
I'm Anne. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina.
Welcome in.
Thank you. I I never considered myself as someone with addiction in the past because I didn't have a problem with substance, et cetera, et cetera. But my gift was that when my daughter did become addicted to drugs and alcohol, I was given the gift of looking at myself and recognizing my tendencies toward codependence. That was going on through high school and college for her. And she's now 29. She's in recovery and she's living at home because she has Lyme disease, which is another issue, but finishing her degree. And we have a great relationship. But the question I have that comes up for me is that there will be times when she gets depressed because of her chronic illness or whatever else. And sometimes she'll slip into an eating disorder or something addictive related. And as a mother, this is not a question so much, it's not an intellectual or a therapy question or any of that. It's more of a spiritual question of in the moments in those discussions with her when she is so depressed and concerned and maybe talks about not wanting to be on this earth, I get triggered back into my old fear. And all the work that I've done on myself and all the attempts I've had to trust myself and her path seem to vanish in that moment. And my body, it's like I'm on fire.
Mm.
I'm so anxious to help her soothe myself, fix the situation. And it's as much coming from a place of there are components of my conditioning that have contributed this, but it's also from a mother of a child with addiction. It is a post traumatic stress trigger reaction that all it takes is one accident and she overdoses. If she decides that she cannot handle her depression, that's a very real fear and concern that I think all mothers of children with addiction go through. So my question is, how do you deal with that feeling in the moment to when you're having the discussion and you just want to jump out of your skin and say, oh, please, what can I do? How can I help you? Whatever. How do you stay present with her? And also how on a spiritual level, how do I return to a level of trust that is healthier than just having my reaction?
Mm.
Um, so that's kind of my question.
What a powerful inquiry. I'm super grateful for it. I want to just ask, how old is your daughter? Did you say?
She's now 29. She
29.
she was, this started when she was about 15 and went till about 23, 24.
And she's sober now?
Yeah. Well, she slips sometimes with eating disorder, but she is not doing drugs and alcohol anymore.
Hmm. For how long?
I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years.
Hmm. What a blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing. Okay.
Part of it was because she got Lyme disease and got so sick she couldn't handle doing it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
her body was in alignment with her spirit in
Hmm. Yes.
that way.
Okay. So I'm going to remind you of things you already know. And that's part of looking at this inquiry. So I'm going to begin with this. There's no stronger prayer, no more powerful prayer in the universe than a mother's prayer. Hold true to your prayer. Use the practice of prayer. Really key in here on this practice. It's overlooked, it's misunderstood, it's pushed to the side. It is one of the most powerful things that we have at our disposal. And I will say it again, there's nothing more powerful than a mother's prayer for her child. So use that. This is something that you can do. This is something that you have access to. Be in that relationship with the greater intelligence and use that power. And if you don't believe in that power or have difficulty knowing if that's a worthwhile pursuit, just do it for a little while each day and just work with it. Work with it. And the prayer is not often we approach prayer like, okay, I'm going to ask for something. I would be grateful if you would give me this thing. A prayer can be, yes, I pray for the well being of my children. Okay, sure, of course. There's also a prayer, I pray for the highest possible good. I pray for my strength and presence in this time. I pray for the right words, the right actions. I pray for guidance. Please show me what to do. These prayers are so powerful, and it's a practice, and we can become even more powerful at our prayer, and being successful in our prayer is an entire topic unto itself. How to be successful at prayer. There's a word for that. Prosperity. Prosperity means successful at prayer. So to truly be a prosperous person is to have a relationship, a collaboration, an energetic outpouring of communication that is returned into this feeling of prosperity. So we want to be prosperous people. We want to be successful at our prayer. That's the first thing. I start there because there's such a powerlessness in working with any other human being, in relating to someone else, being concerned about someone else, trying to control someone else, or feeling that overwhelming concern that they're going to hurt themselves. And there's so much powerlessness to that. Like we recognize, and again, I said I would say some things that you already know. We know we cannot control another adult's behavior. We cannot control how other people think, what other people do. And to a great extent, we want to stay out of ever trying. We want to be on, in our field. And we want to stand as an example and stand as an inspiration and stand as an example of victory. Victory over what? Victory over the difficulties of the human condition. Victory over the confusing aspects, the incredibly difficult relationship we have with thoughts and emotion and our mind and our ego. The more that we can stand as an example of victory, the more others will catch inspiration from us. They will not only catch the inspiration, they will actually be elevated just by being in our presence. People who are wanting to leave the planet prematurely. They want to leave because they're in great pain and they don't see that there could be a way through. And they may get desperate, cornered. And what they need to see in that moment is, and need to experience in that moment is a loving example of victory. I'm hearing that you're very present for this child, that you have a relationship. And that's a beautiful thing. There's an open communication there. That's a beautiful thing. So practice to show up energetically in front of somebody as an example of victory. And in order to be able to do that and to inspire another into solutions and to focus on solutions to problems rather than be in the problem itself, it requires a human being that does that as a regular practice to become even more effective, even more present, even more prosperous as a mother. The work is to become more in alignment with your strength, with your authentic self, with your joy, to live in the solution to your challenge and to demonstrate the solution is effective. These are all things that you can do on your side of the street. You're doing them not so much for the other person, but you can't help but affect everybody. People will come up to you and say things like, whatever it is that you've been doing lately, I would like to do that. I would be interested in that because you are radiant and present and strong and light. When people speak about every time, 100%, when anybody speaks about someone else who's caught in depression, caught in addiction, or they're worried about that person, there's a heaviness in the heart. If you were to stay in that heaviness and build that heaviness, even for just a few hours, you could really whip yourself up into a lather of pain and be very, very disconnected from what the actual truth is in front of you. A truth might be, well, my daughter's having a difficult day. Okay. My daughter's had an experience with addiction. Okay. She has been sober now for a number of years. Isn't that incredible? I have no reason to believe that she wouldn't be. She's facing some challenges. Maybe I can be a loving support to her, and I have to let go of the fears of what could someday happen and return myself to presence, return myself to this place because this is what's real. You know the purpose of your life right now? Right now.
Do I know the purpose of my life?
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, I feel like to continue to discover my authentic self and
Mhm.
what I feel to be true, and to honestly and openly share that part of myself with those that I love and with others. That's
Yes.
where I am right now.
I love what you said. And unfortunately, I gave you a trick question,
Oh, what?
a little bit of a trickster. So the purpose of your life right now is to talk to me. And that's the entire purpose of your life right now. Because the purpose of my life right now is to speak with you and to have this interaction. That level of presence, that level of understanding of the moment, and everything you said was beautiful and right on point. I know that to be the greater effort that you're making. When you're talking to your daughter who's in front of you having a difficult moment, you might notice a difficult feeling coming up for you. Oh, I notice I have some fear coming up for me. Okay. In the moment, you notice that fear. And if you were to be able to immediately dissect that fear, you would recognize the fear is based on both probably the past and a potential future.
True. Very true.
In that moment, that fear can be dismantled, understanding that, well, we're not in the past and we're not in the future. I'm just here with my daughter. And let me return to presence with what is. She's feeling sad today. Or she's having a difficult moment today. It's okay. Your worry doesn't change outcomes. Your presence does. Your presence makes the difference in any moment, any conversation. That's what will do it. But investigating into a concern about a future that may not ever come to pass is I would call it an addictive impulse of the mind and not particularly helpful, which builds fear and builds pain and builds story and builds difficulty. And then that snowballs. And that's our greatest challenge, I think, when we're dealing with any, potentially negative or painful situation. Our challenge is to remain present and work on our presence. And as the emotions arise and the fears arise, we have to, it's almost, I don't mean to pedantically reduce it to a video game, but it's like, boo, 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 boo. You got to shoot the thoughts down the fears down as they're coming up. They've got to be shot down and dismantled for the nonsense that they are. For they are not based in the here and they are not based in the now. And we bring ourselves back to presence. Be with your daughter when you're with your daughter. And, be here when you're with us as you are. When I feel a sense of powerlessness, I return myself to the question, and the inquiry is, what can I do? What's appropriate here? What's within my sphere of influence? So I can pray for another. I can work on myself to increase my presence, my radiance. And I can show up in the world in a very present, loving, caring, compassionate, connected way. I can try to be supportive with some kind words when it's appropriate. If somebody asks me, I can offer my prayer always. I can meditate and calm my mind to become more effective as a human being. These are the things I can do. I can feed myself some really nourishing food. I can hydrate myself and make sure the needs of my body are met, the core needs. And I can really focus on my breath, make sure the primary need of my body is being met. These are the things that I can do. I can learn more about, if my child comes to me and says, I am struggling with depression, I can educate myself as to, what are some of the approaches that successful people have implemented to overcome those challenges. I can educate myself in that way. And maybe I have a really important thing or positive thing to say. But if I lose my presence and I enter the world of worry and fear and I stay there for any length of time, I know that I have lost my consciousness. I know that I have stepped over the line. And I'm now in that place where I'm neither effective for the other person and I'm not able to enjoy my life today. I'm caught up in someone else's situation. Having said all of this, I certainly understand and do not mean and do not intend to diminish the pain of watching a loved one hurt themselves. But the blessing of your situation is that that's not what's going on here. That your daughter has a program. She has recovery. She has a relationship with a power greater than herself. She has friends and resources and opportunities that, yes, 10 years ago, maybe she didn't, but she does now. And so do you. So does this make sense to you? And anything else come up for you as we're looking at this?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that it's really a helpful practice. Thank you. To in that moment, I mean, I can intellectually think about these things, and I do later, but in the moment when the visceral response comes up, I think just the simple question of, am I thinking about the past? Am I thinking about the future? And what's really happening right in front of me? That's a really powerful practice for when I get those feelings,
Mm.
to remember. So thank you.
My goodness. Thank you. And I do want to underline again, I don't know anything about your spiritual practice and your approach to communication beyond the physical, but prayer is so, I really, really think it's so important.
I do.
Okay. Okay.
Of
Yes.
course, any mother who has a child in this situation does it one way or the other, you know?
Exactly. They used to say there's no atheists in foxholes.
No.
There's no atheists who have ever given birth. So there you go. Okay. Thank you and blessings. And thank you so much for this earnestness.